Macroevolution is the belief that all life forms have descended from a common ancestor, the first one-celled creature. And all of this has happened by natural processes, without any intelligent intervention. They say this has happened by natural selection, but the term natural selection is a misnomer. Since the process of evolution is, by definition, without intelligence, there is no selection at all going on. It's a blind process. The term natural selection simply means that the fittest creatures survive. So what? That's true by definition. The fittest survive. This is called tautology, a circular argument that doesn't prove anything. Logically, these are creatures that are best equipped genetically and structurally to deal with the changing environmental conditions. That's why they survive. As an example of natural selection, consider what happens to bacteria attacked by antibiotics. When the bacteria survive a bout with the antibiotics and multiply, that surviving group of bacteria may be resistant to that antibiotic. The surviving bacteria are resistant to the antibiotic because the parent bacteria possess the genetic capability to resist, or a rare biochemical mutation somehow helped it survive. We say rare because mutations are nearly always harmful, since the sensitive bacteria die and the surviving bacteria multiply and now dominate. They say that the surviving bacteria has evolved, having adapted to the environment. The surviving bacteria provide us with an example of evolution. Fair enough, but what kind of evolution? The answer is absolutely critical. Defining evolution is perhaps the greatest point of confusion in the creation/evolution controversy. This is where Darwin errors and false claims begin to multiply, if not checked by those who believe observation is important to science. Here's what observation tells us. The surviving bacteria always stay bacteria. They do not evolve into another type of organism. That would be macroevolution. Natural selection has never been observed to create new types. But macroevolution is exactly what the Darwinists claim from the data. They say that these observable micro changes can be extrapolated to prove that unobservable macroevolution has occurred. They make no distinction between microevolution and macroevolution, and thus use the evidence for micro to prove macroevolution. By failing to make this critical distinction, Darwinists can dupe and fool the general public into thinking that any observable change in any organism proves that all life has evolved from the first single-cell creature. This is why it is essential that the right distinctions be made and that all hidden assumptions be exposed with evolution, micro or macroevolution.
Now we've observed this small round block going through this small round hole, which proves this giant square one can as well.
Yeah. Well, show us then.
No need for that. You've seen the small round block. Remember the small round block? That's the giant square one.
Microevolution has been observed, but it cannot be used for evidence for macroevolution, which has never been observed. Darwinists are masters at defining the term evolution broadly enough so that the evidence in one situation might be counted as evidence in another. Unfortunately for them, the public is beginning to catch on to this tactic, thanks largely to the popular works of Berkeley law professor Philip Johnson, who first exposed this Darwinistic sleight of hand with his groundbreaking book Darwin on Trial. That's where he pointed out that
none of the proofs for natural selection provides any persuasive reason for believing that natural selection can produce new species, new organs, or other major changes, or even minor changes that are permanent.
Biologist Jonathan Wells agrees when he writes,
"Biochemical mutations cannot explain the large-scale changes in organisms that we see in the history of life."
Macroevolution just cannot do the job, with reasons like 1. Genetic limits, 2. Cyclical changes, 3. Irreducible complexity, 4. Non-viability of transitional forms, 5. Molecular isolation. These are just 5 lines of evidence which show that natural selection could not have produced new life forms, which leads to the conclusion that the idea of macroevolution is just a faith-based fairy tale assumption.